The wind moved slowly across the broken city, carrying dust, smoke, and the smell of old fire. Every building looked dead. Every shadow felt heavy. The war had ended months ago, but no one really won. Only silence ruled now. Ryan, a human engineer from the rescue team, walked carefully through the ruins. His boots pressed on broken glass and metal pieces. He was searching for survivors, though deep inside, he didn't expect to find anyone alive. His scanner beeped weakly, showing a small heat signal ahead. He frowned, whispering to himself, "Could someone still be alive here?" The building in front of him had no roof, just walls burned black. He pushed open the half-melted door and stepped inside. Dust fell from the ceiling like slow rain. His flashlight moved across the floor. Broken beds, burnt furniture, and a half-buried blanket. At first it looked empty, then he heard it, a soft voice. Almost like a breath, "I'm dirty." Outside, Ryan froze. The voice was small, weak, and like that of a scared child. He turned slowly, pointing his light toward the corner. The blanket moved a little. His heart started beating faster. He stepped closer, his voice gentle. "Hey, it's okay, I'm not going to hurt you." He knelt down and lifted the blanket, and then he froze completely. Underneath was a small alien girl, no more than 8 years old. Her skin was pale silver, covered in dirt and ash. Her eyes, large and shining, reflected the flashlight like tiny stars. One side of her face had faint metallic lines, glowing faint blue. Her lips trembled as she whispered again, "I'm dirty." Outside, they said I'm bad. Ryan's throat went dry. She wasn't like any alien he had seen before. She looked half human, half machine. There were thin metal vines under her skin that pulsed with light. He slowly reached out, brushing away some dust from her arm. The skin felt warm, alive. "Hey, you're safe now," he said softly. "I'm going to help you." The girl's eyes blinked slowly, as if she didn't believe him. "Help?" she whispered. "They said help means pain." Ryan felt a wave of anger and sadness. He noticed her legs were shaking, and one of them had a metal band attached, like a control shackle. He pulled a small tool from his belt and cut it off carefully. When it broke, she flinched but didn't cry. "You're free now," Ryan said, his voice calm. "You can rest, okay?" She looked at him again, confused. "Free? What is free?" Ryan sighed, not sure how to explain freedom to a child who had never known it. He smiled gently and said, "Free means you don't have to be afraid anymore." She stared for a long moment, and then her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "I don't remember my name." Ryan shook his head. "That's okay. We'll find it later." He picked up his scanner again. The signal was unstable, something was interfering. A red warning appeared on his wrist screen. "Proximity alert. Drone movement detected." His stomach tightened. If the enemy drones were still active, they would scan for any living being, human or alien. He looked back at the girl, who was hugging her knees under the blanket. "Can you walk?" he asked. She tried to stand but stumbled, her small body weak. Ryan quickly lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten for days. As he carried her out, the ground shook slightly. He looked up. Small drones floated over the skyline, red eyes scanning the ruins. "Damn," he muttered. Ducking behind a collapsed wall, the girl's eyes glowed faintly again. "They are looking for me," she said quietly. "They always come when I move." Ryan looked at her in surprise. "Why? What are they looking for?" She didn't answer, just buried her face in his shoulder and whispered, "Because I broke their rule." The noise of the drones grew louder. Ryan activated his signal jammer, a small blinking device that sent out interference waves. The drones slowed, confused, and floated away. He exhaled deeply. When he looked down again, the girl was staring at his hand, at the human skin covered in scars and dirt. She touched it carefully like it was something rare. "You're not like them," she said. Ryan smiled faintly. "No, I guess I'm not." They reached a cracked tunnel entrance that led to an underground shelter. Ryan pushed open the heavy metal hatch and climbed down with her. Inside it was dark and cold but safe. He placed her gently on a piece of cloth and covered her again. The emergency light flickered above them. For a moment the world outside felt far away. The girl spoke softly. "Are you going to leave me?" Ryan shook his head. "Not a chance." He gave her a small water pack. She sipped it slowly, then smiled for the first time. a tired, broken smile. "Thank you," she said. "No one ever said thank you to me before." Ryan's chest tightened. He didn't know who she was or what she had done, but he knew one thing. She didn't deserve to be hunted. He sat near the door, checking his scanner again. The red dots were getting closer. Whatever had made that little girl whisper, "I'm dirty." Outside was coming for her again. Ryan loaded his weapon and whispered to himself, "Not this time. Outside." The wind howled through the ruins and deep in the dark tunnel. The child's eyes glowed faintly, like two tiny stars refusing to die. The air in the underground shelter felt heavy. The walls were cold, the lights weak, and the silence deeper than night. Ryan sat beside the little girl. Holding his scanner close to his chest, the red dots on the screen moved slowly, like hunters smelling blood. They were not far. The girl slept with the blanket wrapped tightly around her. Her breathing was soft, but every few seconds her body twitched, like she was dreaming of something terrible. Ryan couldn't stop looking at her small face, the thin silver lines that ran under her skin. They looked like veins of light pulsing faintly. She didn't look like a weapon. She looked like a scared child lost in a nightmare. He whispered to himself, "What did they do to you?" Suddenly the scanner beeped louder. A mechanical noise echoed above the ground, whirring, clicking, and the metallic sound of claws. Ryan stood quickly, grabbed his gear, and whispered, "We need to go." The girl opened her glowing eyes, confused and sleepy. "Go? But it's dark." He nodded. "That's why we'll be safe. Come on." He lifted her gently into his arms. The moment her feet left the ground, the floor vibrated. Dust fell from the ceiling. A searchlight beam broke through a crack above them. Drones. He didn't have time to think. He ran through the tunnel, ducking low behind them. A metallic voice echoed through the ruins. "Target detected. Biometal anomaly confirmed. Eliminate." The girl hid her face in his shoulder, trembling. "They found me," she whispered. "I told you they always find me." Ryan gritted his teeth. "Then we'll make them lose you again." The tunnel opened into an old subway station filled with broken trains. Ryan jumped down to the rails and hid behind a large wheel. He placed the girl down and looked into her eyes. "Can you stay quiet?" he asked. She nodded, trying hard to be brave. "Good girl," he said softly, pulling a small cube from his belt. He pressed it. The cube lit up and began to hum. A signal scrambler, his last one moments later. 3 drones entered the tunnel. Spider-shaped machines with red eyes and long arms. They scanned the air, searching for her energy signature. Ryan threw a piece of metal across the room. It clattered loudly. The drones turned instantly toward the sound. He whispered, "Now," grabbed the girl, and ran through the opposite exit. But one of the drones turned its head too fast. It saw the faint blue glow from the girl's skin. Target reacquired. Blaster shots burned through the wall near them. Ryan jumped behind a train, pieces of concrete flying past. The girl cried out, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to glow." Ryan smiled slightly despite the danger. "It's okay, kiddo. Just keep your head down." He crawled under the train and threw a grenade-sized EMP device. It exploded with a silent flash. The drones froze mid-air, twitching. Smoke filled the tunnel. Ryan coughed, grabbed the girl, and ran again. Up ahead, he saw a faint blue light, the end of the tunnel. When they reached it, the opening led to a valley filled with mist. Ruined towers stood like broken teeth in the fog. Ryan placed the girl down beside a rock and scanned the sky. No signals, no drones for now. They were safe. He sat down, breathing hard. The girl looked at him quietly. Her small hands trembled as she said, "They said I was dirty because I broke the rule." Ryan turned his head toward her. "What rule?" She looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "We were not supposed to touch humans." Ryan stared at her, confused. "Touch humans? What does that mean?" She shook her head. "I don't know. But when I touched one, they took me away. They said I'm not pure anymore." Her eyes filled with tears. "They washed me with cold fire. They said I must stay dirty so I can never go back." Ryan's chest tightened. He had seen cruelty during the war, but this was worse. This was science turned into punishment. He took a small cloth from his pocket, dipped it in clean water, and wiped her face gently. She winced but didn't pull away. The dirt came off, and under it, her skin shone faint silver, smooth and alive. "You're not dirty," Ryan said softly. "You're just hurt." She blinked slowly. like his words confused her. No one ever said that before. Suddenly, her eyes flickered bright blue. She gasped and grabbed his arm. "They're coming again," she whispered. "How do you know?" "I can feel them. They talk in my head sometimes." Ryan felt a chill crawl up his spine. He stood, scanning the horizon. Red dots appeared through the fog. Moving fast, drones again, maybe more. He looked down at her and said, "We need to hide." Fast. He spotted a cave near the edge of a broken cliff. He lifted her again and ran toward it, behind them. The sound of flying machines grew louder, sharper. They reached the cave just as a beam of light swept over the valley. Inside, it was dark and cold. He placed her down and turned off his scanner to hide their signal. They waited in silence outside. The drones hovered. Scanning the ground, Ryan held his breath. The girl reached for his hand in the dark, whispering, "I don't want to be alone again." He squeezed her hand softly. "You won't be." Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the noise faded. The red lights vanished into the fog. Ryan exhaled slowly when he looked at the girl again. She had fallen asleep against his arm. Her tiny chest rising and falling, he stared at her, wondering what she really was, a weapon, a creation, or just a lost child in a world that hated her. As the first light of dawn touched the valley, Ryan looked at the sky and whispered, "Whatever happens next, I'm not leaving her." Outside, hidden in the mist, one drone still floated, watching, recording, and somewhere far away. A voice from a dark control room said, "Target escaped. Begin Phase 2. The morning light spread across the valley like pale gold. Mist floated between broken towers and old battlefields. Ryan sat near the cave entrance, his eyes scanning the horizon. He hadn't slept all night. Every sound made him reach for his weapon. Every shadow looked like a drone behind him. The little girl slept peacefully. Her small hand held the corner of his jacket. Even in sleep, she didn't want to let go. Ryan smiled softly, shaking his head. She was strong, stronger than most soldiers he'd known. Yet she was just a child. He looked at her arm again, the silver skin, smooth and soft but near her shoulder. Under the dirt, he noticed something new, a symbol, faint glowing blue in the dim light. It looked like a circle with 3 wings spreading from it. He frowned and whispered, "What are you?" The girl stirred, opening her silver eyes. Her voice was sleepy. "You didn't sleep." Ryan chuckled. "Couldn't risk it." She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. "Where are we?" "Far from the city," he said, "but not far enough." He pointed at her arm. "Do you know what this mark means?" She looked at it for a long time, then shook her head. "I remember. Men in white coats," she whispered. "They used to touch this mark and say, 'Project Eden 9, Ryan's breath caught." He had heard that name before, years ago, before the war. Humans had tried to create hybrid beings, a mix of alien DNA and artificial intelligence. They said these children would heal dying planets. But the project was banned when experiments began to fail. The hybrids turned unstable, half alive, half machine. Most were destroyed. Ryan whispered to himself, "You're one of them." "The forbidden children." The girl tilted her head, not understanding. "Forbidden? Did I do something bad?" Ryan shook his head. "No, not you. The people who made you did." She looked down, silent. For a moment, she looked so small, so lost. He reached out and patted her head. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe now," she smiled faintly. "Then can I have a name?" Ryan blinked, surprised. She waited patiently, eyes shining with quiet hope. He thought for a moment, then said, "Lyra." "Lyra, it means light in the dark," he said softly. She smiled wider, repeating it slowly. "Lyra. I like it." They shared a quiet breakfast, just ration bars and water. Lyra ate carefully, as if she didn't trust the food yet. Ryan noticed how her eyes sometimes flickered like small stars. Every time she blinked, her pupils shifted slightly. Like a machine calibrating, she was alive, yet not completely organic. Suddenly, his wrist scanner buzzed. A new signal flashed. Incoming transmission from command. Ryan hesitated before answering. The voice on the other side was calm, official, cold. "Lieutenant Ryan Cade, you are ordered to return immediately. You are carrying classified biomaterial. Confirm your location." Ryan's eyes narrowed. He turned off the transmitter and whispered, "They found us." Lyra looked worried. "Who was that?" "My people," he said. "But they don't want to help you." She didn't understand. But you're human. They should listen to you. Ryan shook his head slowly. Sometimes humans stop listening when they're afraid. He began packing his gear quickly. Lyra stood and grabbed his sleeve. You're not leaving me. He looked at her. The fear in her voice hit him like a knife. He smiled softly. No, I'm not leaving you. I promised, remember? She nodded, wiping her tears with her sleeve outside. Clouds gathered, dark and heavy, a storm was coming. Ryan led her through the forest, the wet leaves shining like glass. Each step was careful. The ground was full of old traps and sensors. As they walked, Lyra suddenly stopped. Her eyes turned bright white for a second. Then she pointed to the ground. There's metal under us, she whispered. Ryan crouched, scanning the spot. She was right. An old human outpost buried beneath years of dust and moss. He pried open the hatch and climbed down, helping Lyra after him. The air smelled like rust and oil inside. Old screens still glowed faintly, powered by forgotten batteries. Ryan wiped one clean. A logo appeared. Eden Laboratories. Lyra touched the screen carefully. The machine responded. A voice spoke in broken static. Welcome back, Subject 9. Lyra stepped back. Scared, the screen flickered, showing images and hundreds of children like her, floating in tanks, some smiling, some crying, some lifeless. Ryan felt sick. He read the text below. Hybrid Restoration Program Phase 9 terminated. His fists clenched. He whispered, they killed them all. Lyra looked at the images quietly. Her voice was soft, trembling. Are they my brothers and sisters? Ryan didn't answer. She stared at the screen longer, then touched it again. A file opened, showing a young scientist smiling beside a child version of her. The name under the image read, Dr. Ilara Voss, lead creator. Lyra whispered. She was kind to me once. Then she cried when they took me away. Before Ryan could say anything, the screen blinked red. Unauthorized access detected. Alert sent. Ryan's blood went cold. He grabbed Lyra's hand. We need to move now. She followed him up the ladder as alarms blared through the ruins. Outside, thunder roared. But the sound of approaching engines was louder. Dropships. Lyra's voice shook. They're coming again. Ryan aimed his rifle at the sky, his jaw tight. Not for you, he said. Not while I'm breathing. The clouds broke apart. Red lights slicing through the rain. Lyra's hand glowed faintly as she whispered, I can help. Ryan looked at her confused. Her eyes turned brighter, and the rain around them shimmered like silver dust. He felt the ground vibrate. Power flowed from her small hands into the earth. The part ends as Ryan stares in shock. The forest begins to move. Roots, vines, and metallic flowers rise from the ground, forming a shield around them. The soldiers shout orders through the storm, and Ryan whispers, amazed and afraid, What are you, Lyra? The rain fell harder as night covered the sky. Thunder rolled like an angry voice from the clouds. Ryan sat near a small campfire under a broken metal roof. Drying his wet gloves beside him, Lyra sat quietly, hugging her knees, staring at the flames. She didn't speak much after what happened in the forest. The roots, the flowers, the glowing vines, all of it had come from her. Ryan had seen many strange things in his life, but never a child who could make dead ground bloom in seconds. He didn't know if it was power or a curse. He only knew that Lyra was terrified of herself. She whispered suddenly, They said if I ever used it again, I would disappear. Ryan turned his head. Disappear? Who said that? The voices, she said softly, her eyes distant. They live in my head. They tell me rules. Ryan frowned. What kind of rules? Lyra looked down at her hands. Never heal. Never sing. Never cry, her small voice cracked. Because when I cry, things break. Ryan reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. Hey, you're not a machine, he said gently. You're allowed to cry. But she shook her head. Tears already in her eyes. No, I'm not. When I cry, bad things happen. Ryan sighed, watching the rain drip through holes in the roof. He wanted to tell her she was safe. He wanted to promise her that nothing bad would happen again. But outside he could still hear distant drones searching. Every few hours, red lights blinked through the trees. They were hunting them both to calm her. Ryan took out a small harmonica from his pack. He blew softly, playing a slow, sad tune, one his mother used to play when he was a child. Lyra tilted her head, listening, Her eyes softened, the silver light in them dimming to a gentle blue. "It sounds warm," she said. Ryan smiled. "It's called music." "I like it," she whispered. He kept playing until her eyelids grew heavy and she leaned against his shoulder. Within minutes she was asleep. Ryan looked down at her and thought, she's not a weapon. She's just a little girl who never had a chance to be one. He pulled the blanket over her shoulders. Outside, the rain turned lighter, a calm rhythm instead of war's roar. Maybe even the sky pitied her. Hours passed, and Ryan's eyes began to close. He leaned back half asleep, listening to the soft rain. But then he felt something strange, warmth spreading through the ground. He opened his eyes. Lyra was still asleep, but silver light flowed from her hands into the earth. The fire flickered brighter, Ryan whispered. "Lyra?" He looked outside. The rain was falling in slow motion. Drops of water shone like tiny stars. The air smelled fresh, clean. Grass began to grow from the muddy soil. Pushing up through cracks, it was beautiful. And terrifying. Lyra's lips moved as she dreamed. Her voice faint. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt them." Then came a flash, bright enough to blind him. The world shook. Ryan covered his face. When the light faded, the fire was gone and Lyra lay still, glowing faintly. Her hair floated gently as if she was underwater. Around her, the ground had changed and the soil was soft, full of green leaves and strange silver flowers. Ryan reached out, shaking her shoulder. "Lyra, wake up!" Her eyes opened slowly. Shining pure white, she gasped and sat up fast, trembling. "I saw it again," she whispered. "The dream." "What dream?" Ryan asked. She hugged herself, her voice shaking. "A world full of light. Then the light turns dark and eats everything." Her hands trembled. "And I'm the one who starts it." Ryan felt a chill down his spine. He didn't know what to say. Lyra looked at him with tears in her eyes. "If I stay with you, you'll die too." He knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "Hey, listen to me," he said firmly. "You didn't start anything. You saved me. You saved that forest. You saved yourself." She stared at him, her small chest rising and falling fast. Then she whispered, "Why are you not afraid of me?" Ryan smiled sadly. "Because you remind me what it means to be human." For a moment, silence, just rain and breathing. Lyra looked up at the sky, the storm clouds clearing slowly. She stretched out her hand, a drop of rain touched her palm. It turned into light, glowing softly. Ryan watched in awe. She whispered, "The rain, it's clean again." He nodded. "Maybe because of you." She looked down, shy. "Maybe because of us," he laughed quietly. "Yeah, maybe, but far away." Deep under the mountains, a signal awakened. In a dark room filled with machines, red lights blinked alive. A voice echoed from the intercom, cold and calm. "Subject Eden 9 has activated environmental restoration protocols. Begin containment procedure." Dozens of drones powered on at once, their eyes red and hungry. Back in the forest, Ryan packed his gear again. He looked at Lyra. "We have to move." She frowned. "Again? But I made it safe here." He shook his head. "Safety never lasts long." She held his hand tightly. "Then where do we go?" Ryan looked toward the mountains. "Somewhere they can't follow. The old colony ship in the desert. Maybe we'll find answers there." Lyra nodded slowly, still holding his hand as they walked away from the camp. Silver petals floated behind her. Glowing softly in the moonlight, Ryan glanced back one last time. The once dead valley now looked alive, rivers reflecting the stars, grass waving in the wind. He whispered under his breath, "You dreamed of rain, Lyra, and made the world remember life again." But as they disappeared into the mist, high above them a satellite lens focused. The red light blinked twice, and somewhere in the command center, a man in uniform whispered, "Eden 9 is awake. Prepare the hunters." The desert stretched endlessly before them, golden dust mixed with metal scraps from the old war. The air shimmered with heat, and the sun looked like a dying fire hanging above. Ryan walked carefully, his boots crunching over bones of old machines. Behind him, Lyra followed, her silver eyes half hidden under a hood. They had been walking for 2 days with little rest. Their food supply was nearly gone, but Ryan didn't stop. He couldn't. He knew someone was hunting them. The silence of the desert was too perfect, too empty. Lyra stumbled, holding her chest. "Ryan, my head hurts," she whispered. He stopped immediately and helped her sit on a rock. Her face was pale, lines of light flickering under her skin. "What's wrong?" he asked. She shook her head weakly. "Voices again. Calling me home." Ryan frowned, scanning the sky. "What are they saying?" She covered her ears, tears in her eyes. "They say, 'Return to the core, little one.'" "Bring the code home?" Ryan clenched his fists. Those weren't voices. They were signals. Someone was trying to control her. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "Don't listen, Lyra. They want to use you. You're not a machine they can own." She looked up at him, trembling. "Then what am I?" Ryan smiled softly. "You're Lyra, that's enough." For a moment, her fear faded. But then, a sharp sound echoed across the dunes. A drone's distant whine. Ryan turned sharply. Small black dots appeared on the horizon, moving fast. "Hunters," he muttered. "They've found us." He grabbed Lyra's hand. "Come on." They ran toward a canyon, narrow and dark. Filled with shadows, blaster beams hissed behind them. Burning holes into the sand, Lyra screamed as one hit close. Ryan pulled her behind a stone wall, both of them breathing hard. He peeked out. A dozen drones hovered above the canyon. Scanning, their red eyes glowed like tiny suns. Ryan threw a magnetic bomb and it exploded with a flash. Sending 2 drones crashing into the cliffs, Lyra flinched. "You fight like them." He smiled through the smoke. "Sometimes you have to fight monsters with their own tricks," but the others regrouped faster than expected. "Ryan!" Lyra shouted, "Behind you!" He turned. One of the drones had dropped silently from above, its arm transforming into a blade. He blocked it with his rifle, sparks flying. He kicked it away and shot twice as it exploded mid-air. But then another hit him from the side. He fell, rolling down the sand slope. His vision blurred through the ringing in his ears. He heard Lyra scream his name. The moment her fear peaked, something inside her broke open. Her eyes turned white. And the air around her shimmered. Lightning burst from her hands. Not fire, pure energy, silent and bright. It hit the nearest drones, frying their systems instantly. They fell one by one, smoke rising into the air. Lyra stood there, crying as the energy kept spreading. The sand under her feet turned silver. Her small voice shook. "Make it stop. Please make it stop." Ryan, half buried in sand, crawled toward her. He grabbed her hand, shouting, "Lyra, look at me, you can stop it. You're in control!" She looked at him, her eyes full of fear and confusion. For a second, everything froze, then slowly the light faded. The storm of energy died. The desert was silent again. Only broken machines remained. Ryan pulled her close, both of them shaking. "It's okay. You did good," he whispered. But Lyra only cried harder. "I hurt them again. I didn't mean to." He wiped her tears gently. "You saved us. You didn't hurt anyone who didn't want to hurt you first." Her breathing slowed. Her voice was small. "Then why do I feel like I broke something?" Ryan looked at the melted sand beneath them, glowing faintly like glass. "Because you're too human for what they made you to be," he said softly. They rested inside the canyon until the night came. The stars above were sharp and cold. Ryan made a small fire and checked his map. There was only one possible shelter nearby. The old colony ship, half buried under the dunes. If they could reach it, they might find water, food, or answers. Lyra sat beside him, her voice quiet. "Ryan, do you think there are others like me?" He looked up at the stars. Maybe there were. Maybe some are still out there. "Then why did they make us?" she asked. Ryan sighed. "Because humans and aliens both wanted to play God." She tilted her head. "What's God?" Ryan smiled faintly. "Someone who creates life, and then forgets to care for it." Silence hung between them. The wind whispered through the canyon. Then Lyra said softly, "You care?" Ryan looked at her, surprised. She smiled weakly. "You care for me. That means you're better than God." He didn't know what to say, only looked away, feeling something heavy in his chest. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. Ryan stood, eyes narrowing. On the far side of the canyon, a giant shadow moved. Not a drone, something larger. Walking on 2 legs, it had a human shape, but its body was made of black metal and cables. Lyra grabbed his arm, terrified. "What is that?" Ryan's voice turned grim. "An executor unit. They've sent the big ones." The machine's red visor scanned the canyon, locking onto them. It spoke in a deep voice. "Return the Eden 9 prototype, or be erased." Ryan raised his weapon. Lyra hid behind him. Clutching his jacket, his heart pounded. He knew he couldn't fight something that size, not for long. But he smiled anyway. "Come and try," he whispered. The part ends as the executor raises its arm. Energy gathering at its palm, Ryan shouts, "Run, Lyra!" The night explodes in light and fire. And somewhere under the desert, a buried ship begins to wake, its engines humming after decades of silence. The desert night was no longer quiet. The ground shook as beams of red light tore through the canyon walls. Ryan ran through the smoke, holding Lyra's hand behind them. The executor, a towering black machine, crushed the sand with every step. Its voice echoed coldly through the wind. "Return the Eden 9 prototype. She is property of the Corps." Lyra stumbled, gasping for breath. Her body flickered with faint blue light, like her energy was breaking apart. Ryan pulled her close, shouting over the roar. "Keep moving. Almost there." Ahead, half buried under the dunes, a massive structure glowed faintly. The old colony ship Helios. Its metallic hull was cracked but still alive, humming like something sleeping for centuries. Ryan jumped down the slope, sliding through the sand. The ship's surface was cold and silver, engraved with forgotten symbols. He searched for an entrance panel, his hands trembling from exhaustion. The executor raised its arm, charging another shot. The air shimmered with heat. "Ryan," Lyra cried, "it's going to—" Before she could finish, the blast hit the ground near them. The explosion threw them both back. Ryan hit the sand hard, pain shooting through his shoulder. When he looked up, dust covered everything. The executor's red eyes cut through the smoke, closing in. Ryan dragged himself up, coughing. He reached for Lyra, but she was already standing, staring at the ship. Her voice changed. Soft, distant. "They built this place for us," she whispered. "It remembers me." Her eyes turned completely white. The ship's surface began to react. Lines of light spread across the hull like veins awakening. Old engines groaned beneath the sand. The executor stopped, raising its head slightly. "Core activation detected." "Unauthorized," it said, its tone almost uncertain. Lyra walked toward the ship slowly. The air around her shimmered like heat waves. Ryan called out, "Lyra, stop! You don't know what it'll do." She looked back at him with tears in her glowing eyes. "I have to. Maybe it can stop them." Before he could reach her, a beam of light rose from beneath her feet. Pulling her gently upward, Ryan shielded his face as the sand exploded into light. He shouted her name, but his voice vanished in the roar. Lyra floated into the air, her arms spread. The light wrapped around her, showing flashes of memory. A laboratory, a woman's voice saying, "She'll save the worlds if we let her feel." Ryan stared, realizing this was not a weapons awakening. It was a heartbeat. The ship was alive, and it remembered its child. The executor fired again, but the energy beam stopped mid-air, bending around Lyra like invisible glass. She opened her eyes. Her voice echoed like many voices together. "Stop hurting," she said, and the machine froze in place. Its red light dimmed, its armor cracked. Then it collapsed to its knees and powered down completely. Ryan watched in shock, his heart racing. "Lyra," he whispered. "What are you doing?" Her answer came softly. "I'm speaking to the ship, and to the ones who made me." The ship's entrance opened with a hiss. A pathway of light led inside. Ryan hesitated, then ran toward it. He found Lyra standing before a large glass chamber filled with soft blue mist. Symbols floated in the air, rearranging like words trying to form. The main console came alive, projecting a holographic figure, a woman's face, gentle but tired. "Doctor." "Ilara Voss," Ryan murmured, recognizing the name from the Eden lab files. The hologram smiled sadly. "If you're seeing this, our creation has survived." Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling. You were the one who held my hand before they took me away." The hologram looked at her, eyes filled with sorrow. "Yes, my light. I wanted to protect you, but the others turned our dream into war." Ryan stood silently, Watching the ghostly figure, Dr. Voss continued. You were meant to heal planets poisoned by conflict, but they feared your power. So they locked the core, your link to all living worlds, inside this ship. Only your signal can awaken it again. Lyra's voice broke. And if I do, then you will save this world, Voss said gently. But the core will take your energy. You will fade. Ryan stepped forward quickly. No, there has to be another way. The hologram looked at him. You are human. You understand sacrifice. Ryan's jaw tightened. I've seen enough sacrifice, not from her. Lyra turned to him, tears rolling down her silver cheeks. It's okay, Ryan. If I can make things grow again, if I can make the world breathe, it's worth it. He grabbed her shoulders, his voice breaking. You don't have to die to prove you're good. You already are. She smiled softly. You were the first person who ever said that. The ship trembled. Alarms echoed through the corridors. Outside, new signals appeared in the sky. Dropships closing fast. The hunters were coming. Again, Ryan looked at the hologram. How do I stop this without losing her? Doctor? Voss's image flickered, fading. There's a human override deep in the core chamber, but it can only be used once. Her last words echoed as her image disappeared. Protect her, even from her own light. Lyra looked toward the glowing chamber door ahead. Ryan could see fear and peace mixed in her eyes. She whispered, If I go in, you have to promise not to follow. He shook his head. Then don't make me promise. She smiled faintly. You're stubborn. He smiled, back through the tears. You taught me that. She walked into the chamber. The doors began to close, light filling the room. Ryan banged on the glass, shouting, Lyra, don't do this! Through the glowing mist, her small hand pressed against the glass. Stay alive, and remember me, she whispered. Then the chamber flared like a sun. The ground trembled, energy waves bursting across the desert. Ryan fell to his knees as the entire ship lit up like a second dawn. And through the roar, he heard her voice one last time, soft, clear, and full of peace. I'm clean now. Inside. The world ended in light, and then it began again. Ryan woke to silence. No explosions, no alarms, no humming machines, only the sound of wind. He opened his eyes slowly, coughing as sand slipped from his lips. His body ached everywhere, but he was alive. He sat up, blinking at the horizon. The desert was gone. In its place stretched a sea of green. Tall grass swayed. Under a silver blue sky, flowers with glowing petals grew where fire once burned. The air smelled like rain after years of smoke. Ryan stood shakily, his eyes wide in disbelief. The old colony ship lay half-buried in the center of a huge crater, its metal shell now covered with vines and soft light. It no longer looked like a weapon. It looked like part of nature itself. He touched his chest, whispering, Lyra. He remembered her last words, stay alive, and remember me. His throat tightened. He stumbled toward the ship, his boots sinking into wet soil. Every step brought flashes of memory, her small hand in his, her laugh, her tears, her courage. When he reached the ship's hull, it felt warm, alive. He placed his hand against the metal and whispered, You did it, didn't you? You really saved them all. The metal pulsed faintly under his palm. A soft blue glow rippled across the vines. And then he heard her voice, faint but clear. Hi, Ryan. He froze. The voice came from inside the ship, gentle, familiar. Lyra, he whispered. I told you I'd make it better, the voice said, full of warmth. Now the world can breathe again. He smiled weakly, tears falling. You kept your promise, he said. You made it rain again. I'm part of the core now, she said softly. I can see everything. The rivers, the forests, even the stars. He laughed quietly. You always wanted to touch the sky. I didn't have to, she said. It came to me. Ryan leaned against the hull, closing his eyes. Do you still feel pain? He asked. There was a pause. Then her voice answered gently. No pain. Just peace and light. He nodded slowly, smiling through his tears. That's good. That's really good. For a moment, they both said nothing. Only the wind whispered between them, carrying the scent of new flowers. Then Lyra said softly, You have to go now, Ryan. Others will come, they'll need you. He frowned. What about you? I'll be here, she said. In the air, the rain, the light. When you see something grow, you'll know I'm there. Ryan took a deep breath. Goodbye, Lyra, he whispered. Not goodbye, she said. Just good night. Her voice faded slowly like a song dissolving into the wind. And then, silence again. But it wasn't empty anymore. It felt full of her. Days turned into weeks. Ryan built a small shelter near the edge of the crater. More people began to arrive. Survivors from the war drawn by the strange oasis in the desert. They called it Lyra's garden. Some said the place healed wounds faster. Others swore the air sang. Softly at night like a child's lullaby. Ryan never told them the truth. He just smiled when they thanked him. He spent his days planting seeds and fixing broken machines. Sometimes, when rain fell, he looked up and whispered, Still watching, aren't you? One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, he walked to the edge of the glowing crater. He knelt and placed a single silver flower in the ground. It was the same kind that had grown the night she lost control in the canyon. The petals shimmered in the fading light. He whispered, You were never dirty, little one. You were always pure. The wind moved gently. The flower bent slightly, as if nodding. Ryan smiled, a soft, tired smile, and stood in the sky. Above, thousands of small lights began to appear, not stars, blossoms of light floating upward from the ground. They drifted slowly into the heavens, painting the night in silver and blue. People stepped out of their shelters, pointing at the sky. Look, someone shouted. The stars are blooming. Children laughed and clapped. Old soldiers removed their helmets and bowed their heads. No one knew why it happened, but Ryan did. He looked up, his heart full. Thank you, he whispered, for making us remember what kindness looks like. As the lights rose higher, one stayed lower, hovering near him, glowing softly. It pulsed once, twice, then a voice echoed faintly inside his mind. Sleep well, Ryan. The light brushed his hand and floated upward, joining the others. He watched until it disappeared among the stars. Years later, legends would say that when the world was dying, a little alien girl gave her soul to heal it, and that her guardian, a stubborn human with a broken past, stayed to keep her dream alive. They would call her the Child of Rain, and him, the Keeper of Lyra's Light. But Ryan never cared for titles or stories. He just wanted her to know he never forgot. Every night before sleeping, he whispered the same words, Good night, Lyra. And when the wind replied softly, he knew she heard him.